Welcome back. NEDLAC is approaching the Constitutional Court for direction on vaccine mandates, and many large companies want to introduce mandatory vaccination policies. However, can you implement one at home for domestic workers, for gardeners, as well as other employees? Let's find out from Talita Laubscher from Bowman's attorneys. Talita, good to have you and good morning to you. I think this is an important conversation because indeed the focus has been placed on large companies and corporations and organizations. But when we tone it down and zone it into the household, can you implement vaccine mandates on domestic workers?
Morning, Tumelo. Yeah, it is very interesting to bring it into the home as well, this whole issue of mandatory vaccinations. And in principle, the same legal principles will apply as would be applicable in any other workplace. Essentially, what is needed is an assessment of the risk of transmission. And the Occupational Health and Safety Direction says that certain employees are regarded as particularly vulnerable. So those are the over 60s and the ones with comorbidities. And in respect of those employees, the employer may require them to get the vaccine because it gives an added level of protection. And then secondly, the direction recognizes that where there is a risk of transmission because of the employee's work, those employees can also be required to get the vaccine. And now if you think of the home, it is close contact with the residents in the home. We are using the same cutlery, the same surfaces. There's contact all the time. So it is easy to see how an employer might say there is actually a risk, a higher risk of transmission of the virus here. That risk might be increased if that domestic worker uses public transport to get to work, because there is that contact all the time with people who are potentially not vaccinated. Another factor may be the health situation of the employer and the family. So there might be children who are immune compromised, there might be elderly people in the household, and putting all of that into the mix, one can then formulate a plan for the domestic worker as to whether he or she needs to be vaccinated. So it is not a complete no, it is not a complete yes. One needs to think of all of these factors and see whether there is an increased risk of transmission.
So, Talita, we know that most companies or even big corporations have said if you do not choose or want to vaccinate, then you have to provide a negative test certificate, I think weekly, whereby you do tests and you do show that you are negative before you can even access some of the company premises. How would you then advise employers, especially of domestic workers, to go around this if their employees choose not to be vaccinated? How can that conversation, do you advise, go?
Yeah. Look, the direction says that one needs to give serious consideration to objections that are based on constitutional rights, and those would be things like religion, or if the domestic worker has a medical condition that is a contraindication for the vaccine, that might be something that needs to be accommodated. And then one needs to look carefully at other ways in which the employee can be accommodated. It might be this point of a weekly negative test. The issue is going to be the cost of that test, because they're not cheap. And is that now going to be for the employer's cost? Is it going to be for the employee's cost? Other ways might be the wearing of the N94 mask. Again, is that going to be sufficient in the circumstances of that particular household? And the law is quite clear that where it isn't possible to reasonably accommodate an employee without it resulting in unjustified hardship for the employer,
All right, we have to leave it there, Talita, but thank you so much for participating in this conversation. Quite important one to have with, of course, your employees in your household, your domestic workers, and Talita Laubscher, partner at Bowman, is giving us some clear, steps there that you can follow.